Australia's infrastructure pipeline's worth about $647 billion over the 5 years to 2026. That comprises more than 5,500 projects, and about two-thirds of that value is private infrastructure and the rest is public. That's according to Infrastructure Australia's Market Capacity Report, which was released today. And joining me now on the set is Adam Copp, the acting CEO at Infrastructure Australia. Adam, thanks so much for your time. It looks like peak development will be around the 2024 period, and then it sort of drops off as we head into 2026, and the private sector clearly doing a lot of the heavy lifting here.
Yeah, so actually that will continue to grow. It's more about budget timeframes for governments. They tend to go into the forward estimates about 4 years, so we suspect that it will continue to grow at a similar rate over time.
How much of a challenge is it going to be for the infrastructure sector to find all the building materials that they need to build all these projects that we have coming up?
It's an enormous challenge. We're finding that because of issues around the global supply chain and the impacts of COVID on that, and also war in Ukraine, that the cost of materials is going up by around 24%. A lot of these contracts that are for this infrastructure build are fixed price contracts, so that creates a crunch for the people who are actually delivering the infrastructure.
Yeah, we just had a graphic on the screen showing concrete as one of the main things that's needed. And in your report, you say industry's experiencing delays of up to 45 weeks for large concrete pipes. So this just seems like it's just a massive problem for the industry.
It certainly is. So I think governments need to do a lot of work around how they engage with the supply chain and engage with contractors to make sure that they have the materials and skills available to deliver on their infrastructure. We're seeing some good work occurring in a number of states and territories around doing that, but governments need to have a look at their ambitions for infrastructure and make sure that there is actually capacity in the market in skills and materials in order to deliver it.
Well, obviously the other big thing is steel, massive usage in all infrastructure projects. Do we have enough demand to build our own steel, make our own steel in Australia, or do you need to go offshore as well?
We haven't looked at that in particular, but that would take quite some time to develop that domestic capacity. But there is definitely a crunch occurring, and it's not just a national issue. We're also seeing a lot of demand coming out of America and the UK. So America's just done the Inflation Reduction Act, billions of dollars of infrastructure. That's drawing on the plant, labour, equipment and materials needed by both of us.
Inflation's been a killer for a lot of Australians, consumers, companies. Labour costs in your report shows they're up about 17%, and then there's the cost of construction as well. So is the construction industry at breaking point at the moment?
I think we're seeing, certainly in residential, and there's been recent announcements around ProBuild and Clough who have all gone to the wall. The issue is that a lot of infrastructure construction companies, there's a lot of work going on, but they're all doing fixed price contracts, and with rising input costs, they're really starting to struggle in their ability to deliver on infrastructure. So governments need to look at how they can more fairly allocate risk between themselves and the private sector and make sure that there's a collaborative approach to delivering this infrastructure.
So a construction company locks in a fixed price and suddenly their costs have jumped 20%, but they're being held to that contract that they might have signed 1 or 2 years ago. Are those contracts now changing? Are we still seeing fixed price contracts, or is there a change happening in the sector?
I think what we're starting to see is that a lot of construction companies actually won't quote for fixed price contracts. So there's a lot of work occurring in New South Wales and Victoria, but right around the country around how to better collaborate with the sector to ensure that there's a healthy sector, because cheapest cost at the expense of actually having a construction industry is no way to go forward.
We've got another chart which shows state-by-state breakdown of where all this infrastructure pipeline is happening, and it's pretty clear New South Wales is the big leader, followed by Victoria, then Queensland, but it drops off pretty sharply. I mean, do these other states down the list there, do they need to pick up the amount of infrastructure they're building over the next 5 years, or are they currently at the right capacity level?
I think they're at probably more than capacity. What's interesting about that graphic is that in WA, what it doesn't cover is the private mining sector, which is around 50 to 75% of their total construction build. So there's a lot of work occurring in WA, which unfortunately we haven't been able to capture in this report. What we're seeing when we engage with industry and with governments is that everyone is dealing with this issue in some way or another, including at the local government level.
Lots of businesses talk about skills shortages. It looks like there's about 200,000 jobs vacancies in the construction infrastructure sector. How are we going to find all these workers?
Well, the truth is we're just not going to, and we'll have to look at our infrastructure sequencing, so what we build and when. in order to make sure that we can deliver on it. And there's also work to do around immigration, skills development. We also look at how to make the construction sector a more attractive place to work. So currently it's long hours, it's a difficult environment, a lot of physical work. We need to look at using technology to make it a better place to work.
And in your report, are there any recommendations on what we need to do to sort of help improve the infrastructure sector going forward?
There is. So there's a lot of work occurring in particularly Victoria and New South Wales around creating a culture standard, improving the way in which we deliver infrastructure to make it more attractive to women and people with more diverse backgrounds. The statistics are pretty shocking about the well-being in the construction sector. So depression and suicide are much higher in that sector as opposed to other sectors. So there's more work to do to make it a more attractive place to work so we can attract the people we need to build the infrastructure we need.
And just quickly, Infrastructure Australia, since the change of government, you've undergone a bit of a change. Just talk us through what's been happening.
So there's a review that's occurred into Infrastructure Australia, which was released last week. And the intention of the review is how to really bring us into government in terms of being the independent infrastructure advisor. So that was just released last week. We're really looking forward to moving into implementation with the government going forward.
Well, Adam Copp, Acting Chief Executive in Infrastructure Australia, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.